Hello and welcome to The Discriminating Gamer, the board game review show whose grandfather personally killed over 30 German aviators during World War II. He was the worst mechanic in the Luftwaffe. Ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to go ahead and take a look at Struggle for Europe, 1939 to 1945 from Worthington Games. In Struggle for Europe, 1939 to 1945 from Worthington Games, two players take on the roles of the Axis or the Allied powers during World War II in Europe. The game board is a map of Europe with various cities and locations and tracks leading between them. Each player is going to go ahead and start with a number of counters. They're going to start with either the German counters on one side or the British, American, and Russian counters on the other. Now, one thing you need to know going into this game is that you have level 1 counters, level 2 counters, and level 3 counters. You can think of it as light infantry, heavy infantry, and armor. Now, this is important because during the course of the game, you can't, make change. You can't take a 3 and then say, well, I'll just go 1, 2, and 3 1s. Or you can't take 3 1s and say, I'm going to build a level 3. It doesn't work like that. In this way, the various counters represent those specific weapon systems. Now, at the beginning of the game, you have Britain and France being the Western allies versus Germany. The belligerents will expand as the game goes on. Now, the cards you have actually constitute 3 different decks. You shuffle each of those decks. You have a level 1 deck, a level 2 deck, and a level 3 deck. You keep them separate, and you shuffle each one of them. These different decks are going to represent the various stages of the game, the various stages of the war. The Germans start the game with 6 cards. The Allies start with 5. Now, on your turn, you can do 2 operations, and you're going to use your cards to take them. Now, the first thing you can do, if you look at the top of the card, some of the cards will actually have recruitment units on there. Now, if you're looking for a level 1 recruitment, you simply discard that card, and you can place a level 1 unit on any place that is in your supply lines, meaning it's connected directly to your capital or other space where it says there's a supply line, and you can place your unit anywhere there that you want. Now, if it's a level 2, you can go ahead and place the level 2 anywhere you want in your supply lines, but you must destroy that level 2 card. It's out of the game, and you have to discard another card from your hand. For the level 3 units you want to build, you have to destroy that level 3 card, and then you have to discard 2 other cards from your hand. This is a deck destruction game. You're actually destroying cards as you are trying to build up your armies. Next, you can also do land and sea movement. Some of your cards will say land movement, some of them will say land and sea movement, and that will tell you you can go ahead and move units. Now, you can either activate a specific space, and you can move every unit within that space up to one city away, one location away, or you can move 1 unit anywhere along areas you control. So again, you're going to activate the location to attack other people or just to kind of diffuse your units, or you can move 1 guy just completely along areas you control using that 1 card. Now also, some cards at the bottom will have events, and you can go ahead and you can play these cards for events depending on the timing. Now, some of them are battle events, they'll only take place during battle. Others, they will just take place during the operations phase. When you play them, they will take place immediately. Now, you will also have some cards will have a strategic bombing effect. Up in the top left, you can play that card for strategic bombing, in which case you do not destroy that card. You simply place that in your discard pile, as well as another card in your discard pile. This is going to allow you to move the strategic bombing track into your enemy's section. The further along the section that moves, then they are going to have to get a lower card count. They won't be able to draw as many cards. They won't be able to have as many options during conflict. They can play that to move it back over into your side. It's kind of a tug of war. Now, combat occurs as you move your units into a space that is contested by your enemy. Now, how this works is you're essentially going to add up the total number of combat strength you have in your stack versus the total number of combat strength they have in their stack. Now, some locations also have kind of natural fortifications as you move through into their space, like France or Paris, rather, or Leningrad. They add additional numbers of combat strength to the defender of that location. Next, the attacker is going to draw a combat card that has air support. If you're the attacker, you must play air support. And the air support is also going to have a number on it, usually 1 to 5, that you're going to add to your total number. Now, the defender can choose at this point. He can actually retreat if he wants, but he can also play a card if he wants to defend it. You go ahead, you reveal those cards, and then you add that number of air support to your total strength points. Now, as I say, you also have some battle events, and you can play these event cards during battle, which will again give you more strength during those battles. Now, whoever has the most strength wins the battle. The attacker, the defender rather, must retreat. They have to retreat, of course, to friendly spaces. But also, too, both sides, all things being equal, are going to lose half their strength, rather half their counters, not their total number of strength they had, but half of their counters. Now, if in the case of the loser, he's going to have half his counters rounded down, the winner will have half his counters rounded up. But the attacker can never lose more counters than the defender. Now, when one side or the other takes certain key cities like Paris or Moscow or Berlin or Alexandria or Stalingrad, that person that takes it is going to gain a number of points. You're going to go ahead and move the point tracker up on your side. But again, as the other side gains victory points or takes back cities, then the marker will go down and start to go up on their side. So players are going back and forth. They are fighting these battles, and they are kind of following this kind of story of World War II. As the Allies come in, once they go through their first deck, when they bring in the second deck, then they can suddenly start drawing 6 cards. When they bring in the third deck, they can start drawing 7 cards. Now, when they bring in the second deck, if the Germans have not yet attacked the Russians, Russia becomes active, and Russia can start taking a belligerent stance in the war. When the third deck becomes active, then American units can start entering the war. They can start invading. They can move to Britain or North Africa, and they can start putting pressure on the Axis that way. Both sides are trying to gain victory points. Now, if ever any side gains 7 victory points, they immediately win the game. However, as the game goes on and the Axis is kind of playing for time, by the end of the game, if the Allies have not gained their 7 victory points by the end of the game, then the Axis wins simply by denying the victory to the Allies. Now, how this works is while the Axis, if they get through all 3 of their decks, they can just keep shuffling it and keep grabbing it. But the Allies, once they get through the end of their third deck, if they don't have 7 victory points on the board, then they lose. So whoever gains 7 victory points first, or if the Germans can hold out to the very end, then that faction will win. Struggle for Europe, 1939 to 1945. So this game has been out for a little while now, and it's somewhat reminiscent of Lincoln, the game Lincoln, which is it's a deck destruction game. You're destroying cards in order to build up your forces, and that's interesting. Now, I liked Lincoln. I thought Lincoln was pretty good. But Struggle of Europe, this is a game I talked to Worthington. I said I was interested in reviewing it, and it took me a while to get to this review. And it was kind of one I kept wanting to play, and I just kind of kept putting it off. And anyway, I finally sat down and I played it with Aaron, and then I played it again not too much later with Zach. And there's some really interesting things going on in this game. Some interesting choices. Like I say, you've only got 2 operations you can do a turn, and yet it's very difficult because the things you want to do will require you to get rid of cards, either through discards or through destruction, and there may be things on those cards you want. There may be an event that you want to use, or an air power that you want to use, or a movement that you want to use. And so it becomes each turn becomes a very tough choice about how I'm going to use the specific cards in the way I want to use them. It's a very interesting and a very, very fun system, and a fun kind of approach to World War II. Now, you look at the board, and the board doesn't look overly complex, and you read the rule book, and it's 8 pages. But guess what? 2 rule books, guys. Gosh, Worthington does that a lot. That's freaking awesome. I gotta tell you, can I just say how cool that was? How much I wish every game Came with 2 rule books. That's so cool. And it's only 8 pages, right? So this game doesn't look like it's got that much meat to it. But friends, let me tell you something. This game has a lot of meat to it. Like I say, those choices are just phenomenal. You know, do you want to build more forces, which you're going to have to do? The Germans can also build later in the game. They can build fortresses. Do you want to strategic bomb, or do you want to hold on to those cards for specific events, or do you want to hold on to those cards for the air power they give you or the movement they give you? You know, I was playing a game with a game I played with Aaron. He won mid-game because he was able to take Leningrad and get his last 2 points. And, you know, and it was, it was like, I was so mad. Second game I played the Axis, and it was a full game because I was so close. I got 5 points, but I couldn't get those last 2 points. And then Zach, the deck, the allies start getting stronger and stronger even as the Axis gets weaker and weaker. The Axis gets fewer and fewer choices, and the allies get stronger. So there comes that point where I realize I can't realistically win this game through getting the 7 points. My whole game now is to deny the allies the victory. And you do that, and it's fun, and you're trying to find ways to, it took Zach a while because he kept attacking me with these like kind of armor-heavy armies, and I was decimating him. Well, I mean, I was fighting him, but I wasn't even necessarily winning, but it was decimating his units because you have to lose the counters, not the strength, and he can't make change. So yeah, after a while, he picked up on, oh yeah, this is how I got to play. But there toward the end, I could see his deck thinning, and so I'm playing these Wolfpack cards that make him just go through his cards real fast because I need to get to the end of that deck. And I ended up winning because I denied him the victory. Zach was at 5 points, and he was very close. If he took 2 more, he could have won. But he just didn't have the strength. I worked it too hard for him. Fun game. Very fun game. I love Struggle for Europe. I love this game. This game is phenomenal. This is a great game. Obviously it's abstracted a lot by necessity, but it is so much fun. This is a great World War II game. Great 2-player World War II game. Lasts an hour to 2 hours, and it just is brilliant. Now, a few years ago, viewers of the channel may recall, GMT Games came out with a game called Hitler's Reich, and I was really looking forward to it because it said it was this game you could play in 2 hours, card-driven World War II game in Europe. You could play in about 2 hours, and it said it was, they really built it up. I was really excited, and I got the game, and I did not like it. Rule book was a mess, and it was one of the few GMT games I said, avoid it, right? Don't buy it. And I was always disappointed because I wanted to play that game that I had built up in my mind. And I really feel like Struggle for Europe does what I expected that game to do, and does it very well. This game is so much fun, Struggle for Europe. Worthington, this is another one that knocks out of the park. Like I say, it's been out for a couple of years. I kicking myself that I'm only just getting to it now. But fantastic. Recommendation for the discriminating gamer for this game. Friends, I can't recommend this game enough. Buy it. Thank you once again for joining us today on The Discriminating Gamer. As always, we ask you to please leave a comment for us on YouTube, on Board Game Geek, on our Facebook page, or on thediscriminatinggamer.com. We ask you to please like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and follow us on Twitter. We'd also ask you to please leave a thumb for us on Board Game Geek. That really helps us out a lot. And if you're interested in World War II and military history, please check out my other channel, Cody Carlson, PhD, where I talk about a lot of these issues and books about this history. So thank you once again for joining us, ladies and gentlemen. And I got to tell you, people shouldn't have been that surprised when the Soviet Union really started to expand and grow after World War II. I mean, there were red flags everywhere. Please somebody help me on my feet again, and I don't know where I'm going, and I don't know where I've been. Please somebody help me on the solid ground. It's a long time, and I've been dying. Once a year I wind up in the band.